Hello and welcome to Think Up. I'm Debonitas. In today's program, we're talking about what's going on in Iran. I've invited Hamid Taqvaee, who is the leader of the Worker Communist Party of Iran, into the studio today. Hamid, welcome.
Thank you.
Hamid, so tell us, a lot has been happening in the last 4 or 5 months. Things seem to accelerate as well. Tell us what's going on in Iran exactly.
Actually, I think what's going on in Iran, you can explain it as a war, an all-out war between people and the regime and the government. It started in November when the government tripled the price of the gasoline, and people stopped the car in the streets and started to protest. The answer was shooting in the head. The government killed in in 1 week more than 1,500 people and thousands arrested, and many of them we don't know what happened to them. So from that point, the relation, I think, between the government and the people dramatically changed. Now people look at the government as a killer machine. It's a killer state. They kill to stay in power. That's what they do. That's their policy. That's what all is about. Now the Islamic Republic of Iran, they have no more, there is no the dispute or any protest for the rising prices of everything that people have to buy, or for some other demands. Now there is a war. People want to break down the government, and the government wants to stay in power. That's the relation. That's what's, in a very briefly, I can describe the situation in Iran as a war between a regime that wants to stay in power and people who want to bring it down.
So, talking about the regime for a moment, where is the regime, the Iranian regime, at? Where are they economically and politically? What's the situation now?
I think economically they are bankrupt. And it's not only because of the sanctions. Even before the sanctions, in 2.5 years ago, we had another uprising in many cities, in more than 100 cities, protesting against the rising of prices. And at that time, still there was no new sanctions. I mean, it was that agreement that they had economically with the US and Europe. And it was the nuclear agreement. It was in effect, but despite that, still there is many people were jobless. Prices were going on day by day. People couldn't anymore live as they used to, say 2 months ago, 3 months ago. The situation of people getting worse and worse, and because of that, we have a mass uprising in Iran. And at that time, again, the government arrested many people and tried to push back everything. And so it had nothing to do with the sanctions at that time. So the sanctions with the new policy of Trump, of course, worsened the situation. But the situation was bad already when it happened. So economically, the government is bankrupt, and they cannot do anything about it. And politically, they're in a deep crisis. They have no legitimacy in the world even. I mean, after the shutting down the airplane, Ukrainian airplane, now everybody in the world knows, the people know that this government has no legitimacy. It doesn't represent people of Iran, actually. It's the killer of the people of Iran. That's the fact that we always try to explain to people in the world, that regime, you have to see that it's not a government as such, as a normal government, even with the concept of the government or dictatorships in the third world countries. It's not that anymore. It just kills. They want to stay in power, and they are defending themselves against 99% of people who don't want that regime. In November, we have a protest in more than 150 cities with the slogan, "Down with the government," "Vet to the government." against Khamenei, against the supreme leader, against everybody, against the president, against the government. And now, you have almost the same situation in Iraq. In Iraq, you have uprising, and one of the demands of people of Iraq is getting rid of Islamic Republic, because Islamic Republic is supporting the government in Iraq. And something like this is going on in Lebanon as well. So in 3 countries, you can see that we have an uprising against the Islamic Republic, and so they are politically and economically in a very deep crisis, and they don't know how to get rid of it, how to get out. There is no way unless people bring them down. That's the only way that we can solve those crises.
But is it what people want to do in Iran? What do you think? Is that what do
course,
people
that's
want?
that's the slogan of people. People they don't have any more demands from this government. They want to get rid of this government. The slogan is down with you. The slogan is not give me that or give it this, or we have that demand or this demand. Of course, the demands are there. Of course, all the problems are just getting worse and worse. And people now know that there is no way to solve any of those problems unless we bring down that government. That's the general idea in Iran. That's what many people in Iran, even people who maybe 2 years ago, 1 year ago, they thought maybe there is a way to make the situation better. Now they know that there is nowhere unless they bring down the government. That's the only way that we can improve their situation in Iran. That's the public opinion in Iran now, I think.
But what do you make of it? Because the Iranian regime has recently also said, or it always says, that they don't really have a problem with the people don't have a problem with the regime. It's foreign interference, mostly, namely the USA, that interferes, stirs things up, creates a problem. Is there anything to it?
No, of course not. It's just nonsense. And people know that. One of the slogans, not now, 2 years ago, when we had that first uprising in the recent years, one of the slogans was that our enemy is here. Our enemy is not USA. That's a lie. It's not USA, or it's not any foreign government. Our enemy is here, meaning our enemy is you, is Islamic Republic. And the other slogan was that our ISIS is you, because regime says that after the killing of Soleimani, regime says that Soleimani was fighting Daesh or ISIS. And people say, no, you are our ISIS in Iran. So those slogans show that people know what's going on. Nobody believes that it's US that's the reason of those problems. Of course, sanctions, as I said, sanctions make the situation worse. But people know that the main reason, even for the sanctions, is a regime that is a terrorist, is a part of the reactionary Islamic movement in the region. They know that. And they know that if there is a probability of war, or there is a danger of war, or if there is a economic problem, because this regime, the policies of the regime is the main reason. People know that. That's why they have the slogan, our enemy is here. People know that those, maybe 10 years ago, there was a point, if those propaganda regime tried to tell everybody that the problem is USA, they are sanctioning us, they are against us, that's why we have that bad economic situation or politically. But now everybody knows that that's not the case. The root of all problems is Islamic Republic itself.
So what you're going to make of this, the election time is here in Iran, and it's parliamentary elections.
Yeah.
People also call the parliament of thieves, which I think is quite an interesting word for it.
Yeah, of course.
So we have election. What are people going to do? Because, if they are not happy with the government, if the government isn't really in a good position, what's going to happen? Is this election going to make any difference?
Election in Iran always has been a sham, and everybody knows that.
Why is that?
It's a lie. Because there is no freedom of speech, there is no freedom of press, there is no freedom of political activity. There is no freedom of having a opposition party, no freedom whatsoever. So what they say election, what they call election, is some sort of just between the different fractions of government, who gets what seat in the parliament or in the government, or that's it. That's all there is to it. It is some sort of rearrangement between the different factions of the government. It has nothing to do with the votes of people, has nothing to do with what people want, and always has been like this. But this time, the different is even worse. As I said, this time people look at the government as a killing machine. So election is just a very bad joke, and it doesn't make sense. Nobody even talks about it anymore in Iran. People just look at the election as a new opportunity to protest against the whole system. There is nothing into that who's going to be elected or this party or that party. There is not such a thing. Everybody now, even especially in this election, everybody is from the fundamentalist faction of the government, which is totally on the thumb of the supreme leader. So they want a parliament that is totally part of their killing policy, part of their just fighting people and remaining in the power. That's what they want. So it's not even a show anymore. Before, say 4 years ago, when we had an election, there was a discourse about who's going to get vote. There were different lists between the different fractions. Now even we don't have even that anymore in Iran. So it is totally irrelevant. For the people, it's only a situation to get to the street and protest. And they did that. During the last 2-3 weeks, people in the street were talking about the killings of the people by government during the November, and then during the January after what happened to the airplane. So people think that those are a bunch of not only thieves, a bunch of murderers. We have to overthrow them, and we have to make them to pay for what they did to the people. So election as an issue doesn't exist for people, doesn't mean anything for people. And as far as the regime is concerned, the regime wants to some show of legitimacy, especially for the world. That see, our government we have elections, there is some sort of democracy. That's a lie. That's a sham, as I said. People know that, and people just take advantage of this situation to protest once more against the whole system and against the government.
Hamid Taqvaee, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
This was Think Up with Hamid Taqvaee about what's going on in Iran. Until our next program, goodbye.